Lucia, this is Open Mic, and we're very happy to be back with you again today. And today we have two very special guests. On my left is the third secretary to the Mexican ambassador, and to my right is the ambassador himself, Mr. Luis Manuel Lopez, who I'm very proud has accepted my invitation to be here with us. My reason today is that Mr. Lopez has been here for almost a year and a half, and I know for a fact that many St. Lucians are not familiar with what goes on in Mexico. But I have a slight idea because I should trade with Mexico. But I know over the years that things have changed. And imagine that when I was doing my research, I was still thinking that Mexico had 88 million people, when Mexico today has almost 124 million people. So, St. Lucia, you understand exactly now where we are going. Mexico is approximately 1/3 the size of the United States, but it lives on the border of the United States of America, so you have accessibility. So I don't have to tell you anything what happens as far as trade is concerned. But more importantly, Mexico became a part of NAFTA some years ago, which promoted this country and brought it to a totally different level. Mexico today is a real powerhouse, because even for me, by meeting with my two guests, what I learned was unbelievable, because as the show goes on, both parties will be able to highlight in a better way what goes on in Mexico. Now, the economic cost of doing business in Mexico is far more attractive than the US, but more importantly, the range of product offered is vast. Having visited Mexico and Spain, there are many similarities in their line of production and culture, which makes Mexico attractive to the Caribbean when seeking a Spanish outlook for decorating our hotels in every aspect. And as I said earlier, Mexico entered into NAFTA, and that was a huge step for Mexico. One of the great things about Mexico, in a small way for me, is their furniture, their pottery, their ceramics, which blend so well with our tourism industry. The vast number of tourists visiting Mexico for the last 50 years has committed hoteliers and workers within the industry to share these accomplishments with places like St. Lucia. The assistance already given to St. Lucia in the form of agriculture is wonderful, but eventually, as the two nations grow closer, specialists from Mexico can visit St. Lucia and extend their knowledge to our farmers in order that St. Lucia can benefit from its tourism arrivals. Shipping costs between St. Lucia and Mexico is not unreasonable. Therefore, trade can easily be developed. One very important area in which Mexico can assist St. Lucia is by encouraging Copa Airlines to extend its routes to St. Lucia. The assistance to St. Jude's Hospital is another commitment and beneficial gesture on the part of the Mexican government. We have seen the greenhouse projects, which is yet another advanced stage of agriculture. So there are a couple other questions I have to pose to my guests, but before we go there, we will talk about that. I first want to, having discussed the matter with the ambassador and his secretary, I want them to highlight the situation as far what plans they have for St. Lucia, first in the greenhouse situation and the other areas of agriculture. Can I ask you to elaborate a little bit on that, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
First of all, we wanted to say thank you for this very big opportunity.
Thank you.
We were looking to have the opportunity to talk with the media, to talk with the entrepreneurs, we talk with people like you that are very interested in the development of your country. And you mentioned a lot of things that are very well elaborated about my country, but I mentioned that this opportunity is a big opportunity for us to talk about what is Mexico. With me is the third secretary. No, it's not my third secretary, it's the rank that he has in this foreign service. And all the foreign services around the world have many categories on to the appointments of the diplomatic corps
Right.
as an ambassador. This information that you are mentioned, yes, we are the 13th economy in the world. And Mexico, you know, is very concerned with the Caribbean countries because we are part of the Caribbean. We are part of the basin. And with all the Caribbean states, for example, the Caribbean states that integrate CARICOM, we have a very special relationship. And we opened one embassy here 10 years ago. We will celebrate the 10th anniversary in a month that it marks or put the idea that what is the interest that Mexico has in the countries like St. Lucia and the Eastern Caribbean states. The idea from my country is to have a representation here that work with the 6 independent countries that integrate OECS and to have a special representation with the Eastern Caribbean states, not for first time, because we had a very close relationship before 2005. We have connections into the Organization of the American States, or in New York, or in other important organizations, and the collaboration, the contact, the relationship with the Caribbean state is not because we have now embassies as was before. We are part of the history of the Caribbean states. We are a Caribbean state, but at the same time we have a very special collaboration, and the people will remember that some of the people that they know studied in Mexico before. Now we are planning some specific activities for the Caribbean states. One of them is to have a more strongest relationship. But how we can create that? When you put the accent in something very interesting, that is how we can start to work with the Caribbean states if the Caribbean state don't know, and the people, the population of the Caribbean state don't know nothing about Mexico. So the first direction that we received from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the President of Mexico in this new administration was we need to work close with the Caribbean states. And my special direction when I was appointed in this country as ambassador was directly from the Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Curibreña, Mid Curibreña, that was necessary to work closely with the Caribbean state. But what it means to work closely? Is that the matter that you are relating before, that is to work closely to spread out the information about the country, to know much better what is happening in these countries, to report to Mexico what is the development in the countries, but how we can work together, how we can support
But tell
the
me something,
development of the
Mr.
country.
Ambassador. You've been in St. Lucia about a year and a half now. You have traveled to several of the islands.
Yes.
In the short time of a year and a half in St. Lucia, what have you noticed that, what areas can Mexico really help us in the islands right now, you would say?
Well, mostly the economic development,
Yeah.
and we have a lot of interest to participate in this process. That again, we were working before, not starting today.
Yeah.
With that idea, one of the main subjects, the main purposes was to reestablish our relationship, to work to do more strong relationship, but through so many channels that are very important. One of them was to have a very active presence in the countries. Secondly, to sign out the legal frame that will allow our countries to have better cooperation in many areas, technical cooperation and scientific cooperation, and for the economic development. But the frame that we have now, we signed agreements with St. Lucia in June 2014 in Paraguay. Something curious, but we use the opportunity that we have into the international arena and the meetings into the organizations like the OAS in order to sign the agreement that we have now in place. We sign agreements with Dominica and with Grenada that go deep in the relationship, because some of the times, you understand very well, you're a businessman, and the people that we need some legal frame, legal aspect in order to put in place the,
Right.
the cooperation.
Now tell me something. For the time that you've been in St. Lucia, it may be a tough question for you, Mr. Ambassador, but the islands are close, but a lot of them are different to each other. What way do you see us trying to work closer together? Because, you know, if you take all the islands, like 500,000 people, which is not a lot,
Yes.
what areas could you recommend to show more coordination so that we can benefit more from Mexico in there?
Well, one of the main areas is definitely the organization of the government, how the government function, and that is one of the matters that we work very strongly in Mexico, because it is necessary to have a very well organized administration. How the government works with the population, how they interpret the necessities of the population, and we in Mexico focus the attention in three things: to create employment. But to create employment, we need to get some the best education that we can reach, and to provide the resources for through the employment, through the education, to create better conditions for the life condition of the people, and that creates a very special culture.
Okay.
So the culture of the development, the people must be very involved in that activities, and the administration needs to provide all the resources necessary to do that.
Do you think when our program goes in 4 segments, we've just come to the end of the first segment, we'll be right back, and when I come back I have some new questions to pose to you. St. Lucia, this is Open Mic, we'll be right back.